course on terrorism, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to introduce myself and show you what you're dealing with on the other end of the line. Better fact than fiction. Um, that's not quite my high school picture on the course outline, but it's a couple of years old, and so this is what you get. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, complete with verbal pauses, and a little bit about the course, and then subsequently, if I see that people are actually going to these videos, I will be posting them every week, kind of a review or an introduction to the topic that we're about to cover. If you read my biography, you know that there's a lot of time Japan related there, and that is true. However, I did get involved in researching terrorism and then terrorism policy during my career, a topic that we're about to cover. If you read my biography, you know that there's a lot of time Japan related there, and that is true. However, I did get involved in researching terrorism and then terrorism policy during my career in the Air Force, and started studying it in the late 70s. Became involved, published a book, The U.S. Government's Response to Terrorism, somewhere around 81. Got involved a lot after the Marine incident in Lebanon in 83 and stayed active through 90. Then went off to Japan in the private sector for a while back, and now teaching again at the War College. I taught there from 82 to 90 as a full-time faculty member. Career Air Force officer, retired in 86, stayed on the faculty there through 90. And in my Air Force career, spent a lot of time in counterintelligence. In those days, groups like the IRA, PLO, Japanese Red Army, and others were groups that we were focusing on at the time. Middle Eastern terrorism tended to be involved with the Arab-Israeli conflict and the PLO. But anyhow, started a couple of years ago back at the War College part-time, and working mainly teaching electives on terrorism and also on Japan as a strategic partner. The course that you're taking now online through distance learning is basically a slight modification of the course that I teach on a regular basis at the War College itself. I am new to the online process, and we may have a few technical glitches. The fact that I can even figure out how to use my computer and to load video up to YouTube is a major accomplishment. But there are a couple of things I need to clarify about group participation and posting of threads, etc. But I needed to find out exactly how many folks are in the class, and perhaps we'll be dividing it up into groups, and we'll get a word out to you on that probably on the 26th. But in the meantime, you can see that the course, we had the introductory lesson, and then terrorism is, all the way through review and wrap up. But there'll be 10 main lessons, and you can see from the course outline that each one is pretty much standalone. There will be threads that'll go through the course, that's for sure, but each one of the topics is pretty much standalone and deal with a different aspect of terrorism. So from that point of view, it's just a complex topic. And you could do state-sponsored terrorism, you could do non-state-sponsored terrorism, you could deal with all kinds of responses to terrorism. And so this particular one will deal with various and sundry aspects. The first lesson will be terrorism is and isn't. A lot of definitional concerns about that. And I try where I can, since we're not in contact with each other, to find various websites that might have a lecture or a presentation on terrorism. Not necessarily one that's party line, not necessarily one that either the U.S. government or other institutions might endorse and therefore be basically government actions, but things to make you think. And I will each week check the links to make sure they're valid going forth, and if not, I will replace it for you, because sometimes these websites pull down. When we get to the class 5 on technology and terrorism, C-SPAN has a link to one of the authors, Brian Jenkins. That occasionally is hit and miss, and I found another one where it's fundamentally the same topic. So I will probably replace that in an email directly to you. So terrorism is and isn't, some of the various aspects of it. Then we're going to focus on domestic terrorism and what's the nature of the threat. Sometimes people use the term domestic terrorism to refer to folks like the Posse Comitatus, militia activities, far-right constitutionalists, and then they use the term homegrown terrorists to refer to those that may have emigrated from a particular country to the United States and after a while decided to carry out terrorism. So you have the homegrowns and domestic terrorism. We'll look at both groups. Then we move on to the wonderful world of piracy and terrorism and maritime security. That's certainly been in vogue of late, but you know, piracy has been around for a long time, and piracy may or may not be terrorism. Piracy is certainly an international crime, but then there's also the whole threat to maritime security. And if you examine the United States and look at all the ports and the inland waterways and the amount of traffic that's in and out on a regular basis, you can see that there's a real concern there about the protection of our harbors and shipping. Technology and the impact of terrorism. We'll take a look at, you know, weapons of mass destruction and the debate about that. Used to center on mainly chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, but as we found out in 9/11, planes into tall buildings can also be a weapon of mass destruction. And then part of that, though we'll address it in another, is the technological ability of terrorists to communicate these days, and the like through the internet and other means. So we'll then spend a lesson on the role of the media, but it's not just the press, and in this case the media will encompass the internet and various websites, but it'll also take a look at responding to what shows up in the media and public diplomacy and how successful that can be, because the media is, you know, an effort to search out the hearts and minds of people, the accurate or inaccurate reporting, the sensationalism. And it's very interesting in these days when shortly after President Obama was inaugurated, we had a flyby in New York, many of you may remember, and then suddenly people in New York City were in a panic because the plane was at a low altitude. On the anniversary of 9/11, there were some exercises by the Coast Guard in Washington, D.C., no live fire, meant to be muted, but the media was sponsoring or monitoring, you know, the frequencies that were being used, and they heard petty officer go bang, 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 and that suddenly got reported as live fire on the Potomac. So the new media that we have today, because of the technology, the competitive aspect of advertising and getting people involved, getting a message out first, not necessarily getting it out accurately, as all has an impact on how we view and understand terrorism.